This week on None Other Movie Podcast, we talk about and reveal the title for the new Han Solo film.
Ooh, and Captain Marvel might get its villain.
And Deathstroke might be coming back from the dead in the DCEU.
They could be linked. Maybe Deathstroke is Captain Marvel's villain. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Nice crossover. Hello and welcome back to Not Another Movie Podcast. I am Sean Pierce.
And I am Sean Kelly.
And it's a week we've been looking forward to. It's the week of Thor Ragnarok here in Australia. You listeners in the US got to wait another week. Ha ha. But
now you know how it feels, all right? All my childhood.
Exactly. We had to wait a month for Lego Batman movie, so you could wait a week for Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But now there's something I need to discuss with you on a personal level before we kick into the movie news.
We're getting real.
I thought we could use this show. So if we've got news, we can share it on this show first and, be big exclusive show that we can just drop to our fans.
Yes.
So a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that you decided to share some big news on Facebook and not on our podcast and reveal that you're going to be a dad again. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
It is exciting. I am excited. It's going to be an adventure. Although now every time Mika, my current daughter, is she going to help me my daughter in the future? Every time we sort of
going to make her feel real special. Hello, current daughter, till the new one comes.
Keep up the good work, otherwise you know what's going to happen in the future. We're going to have a spare. But every time she's acting up or doing something like that, I'm like, how are we going to do this and have another one in the house?
Yeah.
We'll get there.
It's going to be good times.
Yeah.
When is the baby due?
Not until April next year, so we've still got a while.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, but it is pretty exciting. And I'm also starting a new job next year. That's
oh, wow.
News, yeah.
Extra congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to start writing. This is going to be my my announcement show from here on out.
Yeah, well, it comes in threes, so hopefully there's something else at the end of the week you might be able to announce.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you're finally coming out. That would be a good announcement.
Yeah, I don't know. I might hold on to that one for a little bit longer.
Wait till it's a slow week and then bring that one up.
Exactly right, yeah.
Now, is there any link between when you and your wife went away to Hong Kong or Singapore? Was it to do the time match up there? Hong Kong?
No. That was the thing. Like, both times when we've gone to an Asian country, she's been pregnant. Last time it was Vietnam. And then this time it was Hong Kong, so that's an interesting little tidbit. You can.
That's a shame because I was hoping that I don't know if you know this, but that David Beckham and Victoria Beckham, when they had their son Brooklyn, they named him Brooklyn because he was conceived in Brooklyn,
really?
New York. So I was hoping that this baby might have been conceived in Hong Kong, and if it's a boy, you could have named him Kong.
No, that would be pretty cool.
That would be an awesome name, Kong Kelly.
Yeah, no, we don't name children after where they were conceived. Otherwise, they'd be called the butt. That's wrong. That's a bad joke. I'm sorry.
That is an awesome joke, and do not edit this out. And you were so lucky that your wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
She would laugh. She's got a good sense of humor.
I hope she'd laugh.
Okay, let's move on, shall we?
All right, let's go into the movie news, shall we?
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
Oh, God. Still laughing over that joke. All right, well, the first... we're going to kick off some of the things that happened last week. We didn't think there was enough news last week to warrant the show, so we're going to backtrack a little bit and talk about the two trailers that dropped last week, and that was the Black Panther trailer and the Punisher trailer.
Yes.
Now, I don't know about you, but this Black Panther trailer looked pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, it looked super cool. They've revealed quite a bit more of the plot points. We're going to see some Black Panther on Black Panther action, which is pretty sweet.
What I liked about this trailer, though, is that this world of Wakanda just looks so huge and so different to anything I was expecting. Like, we got a glimpse of it at the end of Civil War, and it just looked like Forest, for example.
Yep.
And then the opening of this trailer, you've got this magnificent city, all these vibrant colors, and it just looks incredible.
Yeah, it does. I'm really glad we're going to this new place on Earth, which is, it's just going to enrich the MCU, I think.
But the best part of this is, and we'll talk about Thor Ragnarok in a minute. But I was watching Asgard in this film, and I'm like, look at the worlds they're setting up here. We've got beautiful Asgard. Now we're getting Wakanda. You know, they're just opening up these whole realms of this galaxy that the MCU lives in, and it's just going to keep going. It's so cool.
Should we start with our spoiler-free Thor review?
Yeah, we'll talk about the trailers and then we'll go into that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. It looks like there's quite a bit of Black Panther will happen outside of Wakanda as well.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And Ulysses Claw seems to have his claw, which is pretty nice.
Now, did you, I don't know how much attention you played with Claw, for example.
I pay a lot of attention.
But did you see the scene where he's hanging on like the side of a car and his hand opens up and a cannon comes out of it?
Yeah.
It looks so freaky. Like between his middle finger and his ring finger, it splits open and a cannon comes out.
I didn't pay that much attention, but I did notice his hand turned into a cannon because like Claw, the original, has like a sound cannon on his arm.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. And I love that the damage it did to the car just kind of it didn't like seem to explode or anything. It just like crushed it with force.
Yeah, it looks awesome. The cast looks incredible. As I said, this could be a game changer in terms of diversity in, big Hollywood films.
Yeah.
So, everything is happening through comic book films. We saw this year with Wonder Woman how a standalone superhero can, be a big box office hit. This might happen with Black Panther as well. We might see a lot of, movies do come out with black casts, but, they're not as big or mainstream as what they should be. So this could open the door for that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a no-brainer. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And the second trailer that came out was The Punisher. Now, this trailer, I know we've been teased, and I know nearly every trailer for the Marvel TV universe looks good and necessarily haven't delivered, but this one looks pretty damn awesome, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely. That opening was the opening sequence where he's like with his wife in his bedroom.
Yeah.
And then the change. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It looks. They look like they've really nailed the tragedy of the character.
And it's pretty relevant in terms of, all these soldiers that are coming back with post-traumatic stress. I think we'll see that touched on as well. The guys coming back, they can't necessarily reconnect with their families, and even though his family gets killed in this because he's got a secret that they want to keep secret, and that's not giving it away, it's in the trailer. But, there's a lot of themes and stuff that don't necessarily get touched on that might get touched on in this film.
It's interesting that, from my understanding of the Punisher, the original character was his family was killed by the mob.
Yeah,
that's why
it was.
Whereas in this one, he's killed by like the army. I don't know if that was like the ultimate Marvel universe or whatever, but it really gives a very different slant to the character. It's very it's a much more modern interpretation of the character, which is really cool. I think it gives him a lot more
I'm looking forward to
interest.
it. Yeah, I reckon this one could be the best of the lot, and that's saying something considering, how good Daredevil and Jessica Jones were.
Yeah, exactly. You just stop there. All right, cool.
And the first half of Luke Cage.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, good call.
Yes. All right, well, as we said, this is the Thor Ragnarok week, and Sean and I have seen the film. We haven't discussed it yet, so we always wait for the show. This is the spoiler-free discussion. We'll talk about more later in the show. But I got to say, I love this film. I thought it was so good. I thought it was so funny. The adventure that these guys go on is what Guardians of the Galaxy 2 should have been. I actually put this way above Guardians 2 this year. Marvel have made it 3 out of 3 this year with Spider-Man, Thor Ragnarok, and Guardians. But I thought this was a lot better than Guardians 2.
Yes, I thought it was a very, very good movie. Definitely the best Thor movie, but I don't think that's really saying a lot. Even though I don't mind the other Thor movies, but this was definitely the strongest. I thought my only quibble was that it was very funny, but I thought it was funny when it didn't need to be at times. And I wish
really?
There were some beats I wish that they had not turned into jokes.
Okay.
When it was funny, in my opinion, at the appropriate times, it was really funny. It was laugh out loud funny. But there are some times where I'm like, just hold it. Just hold on to that moment, because I think there are emotional beats in this film that the other films didn't have.
Yeah.
And I thought some of those were undermined by the humor. But like you, it was It was a really great film. The color and the adventure, it was just so fun. It was a really fun movie overall.
And it was so different to basically everything that we've seen so far. As I've had a massive heart on for this director for a long time, and I've spoken about him a lot on this show, Taika Waititi, and his humor is all over this. So if you're a fan of his work, his humor is all over this. There's a lot of cameos from. There's a really big cameo that I wasn't expecting, and it was really, really funny. I'm not going to say who it was,
spoilers,
but that was a real surprise. And then we've got other cameos from actors that have been in his previous films.
Yeah,
and he himself is actually playing the rock monster. His name escapes me now. Korg. Yeah. He was brilliant in this as well. So if you're a fan of his work, or if you haven't seen any of his work, go and look him up on IMDb and watch those films, because you won't be disappointed, as you won't be disappointed with Thor Ragnarok.
I think he will be. I mean, he's doing how often do you see a director do the publicity tour so much with the actors? He is going to be a superstar after this, both because of the direction of the film, but also because he's just a cool character himself.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He was on... I think he was on The Project not long ago here in Australia, and they brought out Mark Ruffalo and Chris Hemsworth first, and then he came on and stole the show completely from those two. So
he did the same thing in the States on Jimmy Kimmel, I think it was.
Yeah, this guy can knock it out of the park anytime he's on camera, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't land up just acting as well, to be honest, because he is very funny.
Triple threat.
He is a triple threat. I don't know if he can sing or dance, but he can definitely direct and act. So I'll give him that.
He'd make us laugh by trying.
Yeah. For me, as I said, I had so many belly laughs in this film, it wasn't funny. I haven't laughed in a movie for a very long time, because comedies are very hard to come by in terms of what I like, but this film had exactly what I liked.
Tickled the right spots.
Yeah, and as I said, there were so many laughs that you weren't necessarily expecting, but that they went for it anyway, and I thought they hit them out of the park. I'll be interested to discuss with you which ones you thought didn't, but... overall, I thought it was very good. The villains were, better than normal in a Marvel film.
Fuck, I love her. She's the best.
Oh yeah. Not only has she got great acting chops, but she looked stunning in this film. She had this awesome goth look, and I was just like, wow.
But the character was really cool.
She's such a badass.
The tone, but also she was more than just a badass. Her tone was so something we haven't kind of seen before. It was this kind of cavalier. I don't know. It was awesome. You've got to check it out, and we'll talk about spoilers later.
Yeah, she just knew she was untouchable.
Yeah, and it was cool.
That really came out in her performance. So overall, for me, it's a massive thumbs up. What about yourself?
Yeah, definitely go and see this in cinemas.
Yeah, it's definitely a winner. All right, well, let's go into the movie news for the week. And there's a lot of awesome news this week, and a lot of them you're just like, oh, fuck, that's so cool. But I reckon this one possibly tops it for the week, is that there was a film called The Raid. And if you haven't seen The Raid, go out and watch it. It's just basically, there was two versions of it. There was one that was made in Indonesia that's a bloodthirsty action fest that is... When you watch it, you're just like, fuck, how are they doing this in such a small little country with no money at all? But this film is incredible. Then they did a US remake, which was just as good. And now the director of that, Gareth Evans, is going to direct a Deathstroke film with Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting after what happened with the Batman movie.
Now, for me, this is a match made in heaven. If they seriously have to go for the R rating like they did in Deadpool, because if you can bring that level of violence from The Raid with the violence that Deathstroke brings, it could be fantastic. This could be a game changer in the DCEU.
Maybe they're going for their Deadpool.
Yeah, I reckon they will be, and he could be the perfect Deadpool. Even though he's not, a smart ass or as funny as Deadpool, he's definitely a lot more violent.
Not yet. Wait until they write this film and see how Deadpool tested with audiences.
This is
just make him more funny.
Yeah, this is true.
If he breaks the fourth wall, I'll be upset.
I'm disappointed though that he's not going to go head to head with Batman. I don't see that happening now, because a couple months ago we revealed that the Batman film with Matt Reeves at the helm is possibly going to change everything and not going to star Deathstroke in it. So he's going to have his own standalone film, and whether that ties back into the Justice League, we don't know. we don't really know what's happening after basically Justice League, so who knows where it finishes that. But I'm really looking forward to this. I reckon it's a match made in heaven.
If it goes well, surely he will fight Batman.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Every time we bring up Joe Manganiello, though, I've got to bring up two things about him. Number one, he's married to Sofia Vergara. Yes. Number two, he's a huge D&D nerd. So I really want this film to win for those reasons alone, particularly the D&D-ness. Because he wants to make a Dungeons & Dragons movie, and anything that increases his star power makes that more likely to happen. So
yeah, well, this is true. Deathstroke is a hit. Yes, you're definitely right there. All right, another big, awesome piece of news that came out this week, and he should have been in basically every season that Daredevil was in. And that's Vincent D'Onofrio's The Kingpin is returning for Daredevil Season 3.
Yes, that is exciting.
So, as we know, he's already Wilson Fisk. So whether he becomes the Kingpin now in Season 3, who knows? But this guy just had so much charm and charisma that I reckon he knocked Daredevil off his pedestal, and he stole every scene that he was in.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't wait to see him, and hopefully he's in the full season like he was in Season 1.
I think this will be the rise of the Kingpin. I don't know how they'll do that, given that it's Daredevil's show and he's got to win at the end of it. But given how his arc, now that the last time we saw him, he was in prison, and we saw that he was building up his, his empire.
Yeah.
Surely this episode will be like Rise of the Kingpin. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'll watch him. I'll watch him do anything. I'd watch a Kingpin series.
Yeah, no, he could have his own series, absolutely. I wasn't necessarily really a fan of Vincent D'Onofrio, but I am now. After this, he was so good.
Yeah, what didn't you like him in?
He's just never been anything he's really stood out for me, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, as I said, I've always seen him like a background, never a foreground. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I don't think every part he's played has been awesome, but you are absolutely right. His Kingpin is awesome.
Yes. And another awesome villain that could be added to the MCU is possibly Ben Mendelson could be the villain in Captain Marvel.
Another Disney paycheck for old Benny Mendelson, which is pretty awesome.
Now, this guy, I necessarily never really liked him, but his last couple things that he's done a TV show called Bloodline, which is on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, give that a whirl. It's fantastic. He was also in Rogue One, and he was in an Australian film called Una as well. And everything that I'm seeing him now, he's just knocking out of the park. He's got so much acting chops, it's not funny. So for him to play a villain again, like we saw in Rogue One, and especially now in the Captain Marvel series, there's talks that he could be playing one of the Skrulls or the leader of the Skrulls. So that could be an awesome choice.
You know what? I think he's going to be Colonel Yon Rog, who is a Kree who kidnapped Carol. Or kidnapped Captain Marvel before she was Captain Marvel because he hated the original Captain Marvel and inadvertently led to Captain Marvel getting her powers. So I reckon I don't think he'll be a Skrull. I think he'll be a Kree.
Okay. Well,
awesome.
Anything that he can bring that villainous charm to, I'm sold. I don't give a fuck what he plays.
Because that will tie it in with Guardians as well, with Ronan the Accuser being a Kree. So I think we might see some Skrulls as well. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. It seems like the Skrulls are the bad guy, and then it turns out that the Kree are the bad guy. That'll be a sort of a modern twist.
That's cool. I like it.
I'm excited.
I like it. Well, one of the universes that Universal Studios tried to kick off and started and failed miserably was the Dark Universe. What did we call it? The Dick or the Duck or whatever it was.
The Dud Universe?
The Dud Universe.
Whatever we called it, it was hilarious and witty.
Yes, we just can't. It was so good we can't remember it.
Well, we were drunk at the time, so it's fair.
Yes. Well, the next film that was supposed to be in line after The Mummy was The Bride of Frankenstein. Bill Condon was supposed to direct Angelina Jolie and Javier Bardem as Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, but Universal has almost basically pulled the pin on the DC on the Dark Universe. This is the statement they released this week. After thoughtful consideration, Universal Pictures and director Bill Condon have decided to postpone The Bride of Frankenstein. None of us want to make the move too quickly and meet a release date when we know this is a special movie and needs more time to come together. Bill is a director with enormous talent and has been proven time and time again. I don't know if they saw the Twilight films because they were horrible. as far as I'm concerned. We'll look forward to continue working on this film together. Now, I call bullshit.
I know a breakup letter when I read one. I've read plenty of them.
I think the first 3 words say it all. After thoughtful consideration,
Dear John.
After we looked at the box office numbers and saw this film was a turd, we are not going to invest $1 billion into this franchise. We're probably just going to pull the pin and walk quietly back into the bushes, and hopefully people forget that we ever started this horrible franchise.
It's a real shame. I wanted this to happen. I guess you can't force something.
No, and as I said, I didn't like the idea at the start. I think we've kind of moved on from that. Obviously, Universal Studios wanted to build a tentpole film for the next 5 years or 10 years, but I don't think they started it really well. The first one was just basically 4 set pieces with some dialogue stuck in between, and I hope that people would like it, but obviously they didn't.
You'd think that they know how to make a movie by now.
You would think so, and that's what always surprises me. I'm like, surely... they can see the script, and surely someone's got to say, this isn't good. But I'm like, you know what, we'll just throw $150 million at it. And I would always love to be the producers when they're at the last screening before they're about to screen, and they sit down, and the movie finishes, and they're just gone, oh, fuck.
You'd like to be those producers, or you just like to watch them?
I would like to watch them, because I love watching a car crash. And there's 2 films that we're going to talk about later on that absolutely bombed in the box office, and I love those stories because someone else is on the line and it's not mine, and that's what makes it so much more fun.
Schadenfreude, I like it.
Yes. All right, well, there's possibly a spin-off coming out of the Logan film, which kind of was expected, but kind of unexpected as well, and that the director, James Mangold, is possibly thinking of spinning off X-23, Logan's daughter, to make her own film and possibly her own franchise.
That would be, I think... That could be really, really awesome. Are they going to get the same actor to come back?
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, unless they go, more into the future when she's a teenager / young adult, or they might let her be this character who develops into that. Who knows? But the director came out and said, "We're just working on the script." Patty Jenkins' success with Wonder Woman showed studios that there's less fear with a female protagonist. And it keeps getting hit home, especially now in this modern age that we're living in. So I reckon that it could really work.
Yeah, if James Mangold is directing, I would definitely be up for this. I really loved, I can't remember her name, the girl who played Logan, but I kind of would want an adult in the driver's seat. I think there's more you could do with that. As the main character. So look, we'll see. I'm super excited. X-23 has some really nice stories. And think about the world. There's like a world without the X-Men, a world without Logan. There's a lot of juice in there. I'm really excited by this, and I hope it comes off.
And honestly, with you, I would rather see this than see Wolverine rebooted again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I would rather them start something fresh with this than have to go back and tell the whole backstory again with Logan and the Wolverine.
Yeah,
so I think this is an awesome avenue that they're going down, and hopefully they can make this happen.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Now, I never thought I would ever say this sentence in my whole life, but this next story, when I read it, I was just like, what the fuck? And I'm sure you guys will have the same reaction, is that Michael Bay is producing a Dora the Explorer film.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, it's going to be a live-action film based on the 7-year-old American Latina character Dora the Explorer, and now she's going to be a teenager who moves into the city with her cousin Diego.
This has terrible movie written all over it.
I'm not quite surprised. I don't have a young daughter, but is your young daughter into Dora the Explorer?
No, she hasn't really discovered her.
Yeah, I remember when Dora hit, I had young cousins who were obsessed with her, and now those young cousins are 18. So is Dora still popular? Has the time passed on Dora the Explorer? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're making her a teenager who lives in the city, because they're actually not going for the young kids. They're going for the nostalgic teenagers. Are they actually going to do a gritty reboot of Dora the Explorer? Is that what we're looking at here?
I don't know. I'm when they say Michael Bay and Dora the Explorer, I'm just thinking explosions, slow motion action, spinning shots.
Her monkey will be rabid.
And if there's one thing that I love from Dora the Explorer, because I have seen it a few times, you always know that you're up early on the weekends because Dora the Explorer is on before the Today Show, which starts at 7. So if you turn the TV on and Dora the Explorer's on, that means you've woken up way too early on the weekends. So there's a character in there called Swiper, and Swiper is like this, I think he's like a fox or a raccoon, and he steals things, but he always gives shit back if you say swiper no swiping 3 times. So I use that on my kids as well. It doesn't seem to work. But I would love to see Swiper come into this film as well. I reckon that would be awesome.
I want to see Dora turn to the cinema audience and ask them direct questions. That's what I want to see.
As I said, this film has got disaster written all over it. But it could be one of those car crashes that you just have to go and see.
I hope we're eating our words. That's what I hope.
I hope so too. Dora, that's awesome. All right, well, speaking of nostalgia, there's a company that was pretty big in the late 80s, early 90s, and that was Morgan Creek. They had a lot of good films, and they're kind of rebranding and relaunching the Morgan Creek Entertainment Group.
They're doing a terrible job.
Yeah. And they've got some pretty decent titles to the names that they're thinking of bringing back. One of them was a 80s movie, which I loved, and they're thinking of bringing that into a TV show, and that was Young Guns. Did you ever watch this?
I didn't.
Young Guns was about, basically, it was a Western, and it was about this group of young men who, I think they were all raised together by a certain family, and then the family gets killed, and then they go out for revenge. And at the time, it had some really, really big Hollywood young guns, no pun intended. But they had like Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen, Lou Diamond Phillips, Kiefer Sutherland, Christian Slater. So they had all these awesome actors, and the films themselves were pretty cool, and I enjoyed it. So if they could bring this and done it properly, and do what they've done with the original film and have all these awesome actors, young actors come in and redo this, it could be really cool.
All right, I have no connection to this series, so look, I'm up for a Western series. We haven't had one of those in a while.
But there's one film you might have a connection to that they're thinking of rebranding or rebooting, and that is Ace Ventura.
That's bull crap. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, apparently this is going to lend itself to a what would you call it? It's going to be not a reboot, but basically a continuation where possibly a baton handing over from Jim Carrey's Ace Ventura, possibly to a son or daughter, to take over the pet detective agency.
But I don't understand how this is going to work, because Ace Ventura, I mean, there are a few roles where it is the actor. Ace Ventura is one of those ones where it is Jim Carrey. And I can't imagine an Ace Ventura, even if they do a baton handing off and like, this is a different person, that will carry, I don't know. Look, maybe they're more visionary than I am, because I just cannot see it working.
Yeah, it sounds like a cheap money grab to me. But the idea of Ace Ventura possibly coming back, you know, even if it is, if we get a little bit of Jim Carrey being Ace Ventura again, might be worth something.
I'd like to see an Ace Ventura movie again with Jim Carrey, like as an older Ace Ventura. That I'd watch that. But a reboot, I'm not sold.
I think he has to redeem himself after the sequel, When Nature Calls, because that was horrible. The first film was so good, and the second one was just so bad.
I haven't seen the second one in a long, long time. Not since I was a kid when I loved it, so I will never go back to it, just in case.
Yeah. Well, there's another one you hear that I'm going to tell you might be disappointed with as well. And when I read it, I'm just like, oh, really? But then I'm like, oh, I would love to see this. And that's a 5th Lethal Weapon film.
Yeah. I'm not as... I like the Lethal Weapon series, but I'm not like that was part of my childhood. So, look, give it a crack.
Lethal Weapon was a big part of mine, especially the first 3. The 4th one, I was kind of a teenager by then, and the 4th one wasn't that great. But, you know, we're seeing this renaissance of Mel Gibson, and for that character to come back, and for him to come back in it, would be awesome. So we've got Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and Richard Donner all having a conversation at the moment to bring this franchise back.
Yeah, give it a crack.
I would love to see Joe Pesci come back as well. I reckon his character was an absolute standout, and he stole every single scene that he was in. So I hope they bring him back as well, considering he has come out of retirement to do the Martin Scorsese film, The Irishman, which is filming right now.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what's got them excited. They're like, no, we can't do another Lethal Weapon until Pesci's here, and he's back.
Yeah, well, I would love to see this one.
We're going to have a Pesci-sance?
Yeah, Pesci shots, exactly. All right, well, there's a film that came out this year, didn't do really well critically, and definitely didn't do well at the box office. Ooh. So they thought, you know what, instead of letting time pass, let's just reboot it straight away onto the TV screen, and that is Stephen King's The Dark Tower.
Which I think, and look, there was talk of a TV series for a long time, and I think, from my understanding of the source material, that it will work a lot better as a TV series.
Yeah, I got a guy at work who's a massive fan of these books, and there's something like 13 books or something. And, there's a massive story there, and he said the story itself is absolutely brilliant. So if you could stretch that out over, possibly 6-season TV show, if it's any good, it'll probably work a lot better than trying to cram it into 2 hours on the big screen.
The only thing that really has me excited about this series is apparently it has Doom bots in it, which is pretty incredible.
Well, I don't know what Doom bots are.
They're Dr. Doom's bots that help him rule Latveria.
Okay.
Because apparently the series takes from a lot of different universes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense now.
Apparently,
Doom bots, Dr. Doom.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the right TV show here?
Yeah. So, look, apparently, like I said, I haven't read the source material, but a friend of mine's quite into it, so that we might finally see a good Dr. Doom on screen, and not we'll see.
Yeah, because apparently the books are quite graphic and quite violent, and they tamed that down a lot on the big screen to give it a PG-13 rating. So if they put it onto TV, they could basically do whatever they want. Hopefully it lands on like a HBO or a AMC or a Netflix, because, then they can just show whatever they like.
Yeah.
Which is, actually, speaking of that, there was news today that they're really regretting putting the Inhumans on TV.
Yeah.
It has been an absolute flop, and it doesn't look like it's going to last any longer than a season. So, it's funny, like we said, that should have been a movie and not a TV show, or it should have been on a decent channel that's not a family-friendly one like ABC. So that's a real disappointment. So hopefully they can reboot that into the MCU and just forget about that TV series, which I reckon they will, because if Phase 4 is going into the cosmic realm, there's no better family than the Inhumans to put that in.
To take us there, exactly. Particularly if they lean on the Kree origins in Captain Marvel, the Inhumans are very much a part of that, so we'll see. Yeah,
definitely. Well, as we mentioned before, and what I personally love, I love the big summer movies. I love when a film's a hit, but I also love when a film is a stinker.
So mean-spirited.
I know, it's just the narcissist in me. I don't know what it is. But I love reading these stories. And there was 2 films that opened last week that are absolute flops. And that is the Jared Butler disaster porn film called Geostorm.
Can I just say, though, in all the articles I've read of this, it's always like Jared Butler's Geostorm. And he didn't make the movie. He was just an actor. Lay off the poor man.
He led the movie, though.
He did.
You can't escape it. Well, anyway, this comes from the team that did things like The Day After Tomorrow, Independence Day. So we've kind of gotten sick. Unfortunately for this, the team that made this film, is that San Andreas with The Rock a couple of years ago was a massive hit. So they thought, you know what? People still like these disaster porn.
No, they don't.
Let's make another one. Exactly.
People like The Rock.
They don't. People like The Rock. That's exactly right. So at the moment, this film is looking like it's going to lose around $100 million at the box office.
God. And look, rightly so. This is what happens when you make an early 2000s film, and a bad early 2000s film, and think people are going to enjoy it.
That's exactly right, and you nailed it on the head right there. This is films that we liked watching, back then, not now. We've kind of moved on from this shit. We've seen so many landmarks fall. We've seen so many oceans destroy cities. We've seen everything we could possibly have seen so far. Unless you're giving us something different, the audience ain't going to come and watch it.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it looks like it's going to be the 5th film to possibly lose $100 million this year at the box office. We've got King Arthur. We've got Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets, Monster Trucks, and Ghost in the Shell. All of those looking at losing $100 million.
And some of those films I had high hopes for. Although I will say, we definitely knew they were all going to be flops. So I think we're pretty much on like 100% flop prediction ratio here.
Yeah, I thought King Arthur might have done a bit better. I was hoping it was going to be because I do love Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
But as I said when I spoke about the film a while ago, it just wasn't great.
Yeah, that's true.
But the funny part about this story is, and it's again the narcissist in me, they spent $15 million doing reshoots, and it only opened at $14 million at the box office. So it didn't even make the money back for its reshoots.
Oh my god. Those poor bastards.
This next story I was really disappointed for because I was really looking forward to this movie. When the trailer for The Snowman came out, The Snowman stars Michael Fassbender, and it's a serial killer type film where the detective has to find a serial killer. I'm like, oh, this looks all right. So I actually went and read the book, and the book was very good. But then just before, and I was looking forward to the movie coming out, I already had plans to go and watch it. And then the reviews hit, and it sat at 10% on Rotten Tomatoes from like 40 reviews. So I'm like, I'm definitely not watching this. But what didn't help the box office was that the director, Thomas Alderson, came out and said that they didn't shoot 10 to 15% of the film's screenplay. They basically tried to put the film back together in editing. Now,
That's crazy.
If you've got the director coming out and saying this before the film even opened, more than likely you're not going to get much box office return.
No, that's rather interesting that he's done that. Obviously, he didn't like the film and was trying to distance himself.
He said that the movie is a misfire and they really rushed the project. And to me, before getting everything right, and I'm like, who the fuck was rushing this production? Why was this film, had to be pushed out? It's not like there was fans calling for it or, there was a massive summer rush. It's not even a summer film. So I don't know why there was a massive rush to get this film made. Maybe money from investors was going to dry up if it didn't go into production. I don't know. But this is the thing we keep talking about where they got to meet a deadline rather than get the film right.
Yeah.
So suffering your jocks to the producers of this film.
Can I also say that the title, The Snowman, I don't think helped. Because it's a mystery thriller, and it's called The Snowman. And there's there's a snowman in the film, isn't there? Like he dresses up or something.
No, he basically puts a snowman out inside the front of the houses of the vixen that he's killed.
Okay. Still looked weird. Michael Fassbender, man, he is hot and cold.
Yeah, I know. He is. He's on a downward slide, to be honest. Last year he had Assassin's Creed, which was no good. Now he's got this one. So, his box office ain't looking good at the moment, which means that his paychecks ain't going to be looking good for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have... Fassbender will be fine, but, he needs to find some franchise that's going to... or some film that's going to put him back up there.
Yeah, well, you look at these last ones. He's had Alien Covenant, which was meh. Then you've got this one. Then you've got Assassin's Creed. And then X-Men Apocalypse and Macbeth. So he hasn't really done...
were great.
No, none of them were hits. The last real decent hit that he has was probably Steve Jobs in 2015, where he was nominated for the Oscar. So,
But even that didn't make a huge splash.
No, it didn't. It was more the performance in the film itself that was, anything, coming out of it. All right, well, that wraps up the movie news for the week. So before we get into the Thor Ragnarok one, I just got some films that I want to quickly talk about. There's this fantastic documentary about Steven Spielberg. It's just called Spielberg. And what's so good about it is just basically it starts straight away when he's directing Jaws and talks about nearly every film that he's done ever since. And they've got this it's this awesome intro in that he was part of this group. And this group consisted of George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, and... Shit, the name escapes me now. But there was these awesome filmmakers, and they were just these film nerds that end up blowing up to be these fantastic directors. And the other directors went on to make, these pretty critical films. And he was kind of like shunned away because he was just basically like a big summer movie director rather than a serious director.
Yeah.
The second one was Brian De La Pluma. So, that's an awesome click in itself. And then he had to kind of reinvent himself when he went and did dramas. So, it's a fantastic piece and looking at the films that he's made. but also the journey that he went on as well. So if you can get your hands on it, it's called Spielberg. Go out and watch that one.
I've heard it's great stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. The second film that I watched, and this was one that was touted as the funniest film of the year, and that was called Girls Trip. Had Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett Smith and two other actresses. It had a lot of funny bits, don't get me wrong, but the film itself was just blah. So, if you want to sit there and watch something with your missus, that's definitely one to watch. Or if you're listening, you can bring your man to this one and he'll enjoy certain parts of it as well. So that was another one that I liked.
Do you think that's maybe just because it wasn't like for your... Was it a film made for you?
Possibly, but as I said, it did have a lot of funny bits.
Yeah.
And there's an actress in it who is going to be a massive standout in the next couple of years, and she'll have her own franchises. I can't remember what her name is, but she was brilliant in it. But yeah, absolutely, it's more directed at women.
Yeah.
And but as I said, I think it's one that you can sit down with your partner and watch.
Light fun.
Absolutely. And there was a film that it's coming up to Halloween, and they always talk about these horror films. And I actually went back and watched The Shining with Jack Nicholson. Oh. Now, I was convinced that I've seen this film, and after watching it, I'm like, I don't think I've ever watched this. I was convinced that I watched it, and I'm like, I do not remember anything or any of these visuals. And the film itself is so damn good.
Maybe you got confused with Kubrick's other fantastic work, The Moon Landing.
Possibly, I don't know. But this film is so good. It's got so many good visuals, and the performance of Jack Nicholson is so terrifying. And it's funny because I've seen the 1989 Batman so many times, and you can see he drew certain things from the character from The Shining in his Joker. So, if there's a film that you want to go back and watch, definitely go back and watch The Shining.
Or watch it the first time.
So cool. Or watch it the first time like I did. All right, now we're going to go into our spoiler-filled discussion of Thor Ragnarok. So, as usual, press pause, go watch the film, come back, we'll wait for you.
Yeah, I'll put on a pot of tea.
Yes, that's right. All right, so spoiler-filled discussion now. I'm very curious to see what comedy chops you didn't necessarily like in this film.
There were just a couple of beats just thought were unnecessary. Were funny, but were, I think, not needed. I'm trying to think of a few good ones. Like, right near the end when Korg has... Was it like the dead insect? I can't remember his name now.
Jimmy?
Yeah, or something, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, it was funny, but I'm like, it didn't need to be there right now. And I thought the development of Thor and Loki's relationship was unnecessarily hampered by them trying to be jokey at the same time. I really liked the development of their relationship, and I just wanted there to be more sincerity at times in that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that last one. But as I said, even though it was funny, now that you mention it, they've just lost their planet. They're trying to work out where they're going to go. Yeah. And then he's like, Jimmy, what planet are you from? He's like, oh, he's dead. I trampled on him while we were fighting.
Yeah, completely unnecessary.
No, that was very cool.
Yeah. The funniest part, though, sorry, I just got to say this with Korg, because this is another one, which I thought was friggin' hilarious, though. When Thor and Loki are talking, and then and then Loki vanishes, and Korg just comes in from nowhere. He's like, "Get out of here, ghost!" And he kicks him and tries to kick him. That was great.
It was so good. While we're talking about the end of the film, let's talk about the end credit scene.
Oh yeah.
Now, do you reckon that ship belongs to Thanos?
That's what I've heard. That's what people are saying, and I'm okay with that.
Because I don't know if you saw the leaked Comic-Con trailer of the Infinity War. Did you see that?
I didn't see it, no.
Well, the trailer opens up with Thor floating in space, and he lands on the window of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
No, I did see that.
So I'm thinking possibly that ship blows the fuck out of the ship that they're on, and Thor is floating in space, and that's when the Guardians pick him up.
I hope it doesn't blow the ship up, because I want the Asgardians, because there's a great story in the I think it might be in the Ultimates universe, or just in current 616, where Valhalla is remade on Earth in like the Midwest America, and I would love for that to happen. So if he blows the ship up and all the what do you call them, Valhallans? Anyway, or Asgardians, what I'm talking about. If they all die, I'd be really sad because I want them to make it to Earth. So I'm hoping that Thor like leaps out of the ship and lets them get away, and that's why he's separated from everybody.
Well, let's hope that they don't come to Australia, because Australia isn't very good with letting immigrants in. So
political.
Those poor people would get turned around pretty quickly.
Well, Chris Hemsworth is Australian, so that could be something that is in their favour.
Yes. Another part that I felt was really funny was the introduction of Valkyrie, where she comes off her ship and she walks down the landing and she passes out and falls down. Yeah. As I said, there was so many fantastic, funny parts in this film that I just loved.
Yeah.
Then, as I said, this guy, he's going to be so busy for the next 5 to 10 years because he's just going to have movies thrown at him now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think he needs to rein himself in just a little bit. But like that's part of what makes him awesome, the fact that he doesn't. But at the same time, yeah. But let's talk about those cameos at the beginning of the film.
Yeah. As I said, there's a scene. So Thor goes back to Asgard, and we know already that Loki has taken over the body of Odin.
Yeah.
So there's a massive statue of Thor of Loki that's been erected, and now there's also a production play of what happened at the end of Thor: The Dark World. So we see Chris Hemsworth, older brother.
No, his younger
Thor.
brother.
Oh, is that younger? Is it?
Yeah.
Well, his younger player is playing Thor, and I'm like, oh, that's a fucking great cameo.
It's pretty hilarious because he was almost cast as the character. I'm like, that's what he would have looked like.
And it's funny because they look so similar.
Yes.
That actually does just look like Thor anyway.
I didn't realize it was him until after the movie and I was reading stuff about it. I'm like, wow, they really got someone who looks like Thor. Well done.
Yeah. And then they pan down. And the best cameo I reckon I've ever seen is Matt Damon playing Loki. And it's funny because they were on Jimmy Kimmel not long ago. And Taika, Mark Ruffalo, and Chris Hemsworth. And Matt Damon does a cameo during their interview on the back screen.
Yeah.
And now it all makes sense because he's actually in the film as well.
Well, apparently they're besties. Like, Matt Damon came out to Australia with Chris Hemsworth, and they hung out, which is really cool.
That would have been awesome if they're just sitting around having a beer, and Chris Hemsworth's like, "Hey, why are you down here? You want to make a cameo?"
Yeah.
in Thor Ragnarok.
Look, it's a good example. I loved it. I thought it was really funny, but it really took me out of the movie because.
Nah, come on. It's so good that it's so laughable. Yeah, but every time Stan Lee pops in, it doesn't take you out of the film.
Well, it does a little bit, but I'm definitely more okay with that. And he had a funny one in this one as well. But that's kind of like, there's also the in-universe explanation of that as well. That he's like working for the Beyonders and like he's watching everything, so that's why he keeps popping up. So I kind of... Yeah, I know. I kind of can forgive that one a little bit more. And like I said, this cameo was awesome, and I'm kind of glad it was in there in one regard, but it is, for my mind, symbolic of the only thing that I found off-putting about this movie, was that they're
fair enough.
too humorous at times. I thought it kind of played... I wish, and this has got nothing to do with Taika Waititi, this has got to do with the script. I thought the first third was quite rushed in order to get to like the film kicking off when Thor got to Sakaar, which I can understand, but I wish didn't happen. And the fact that Loki was so easily kind of taken out of his thing, I thought was a bit of a shame, because it was set up at the end of the last Thor film. It was like, it's a huge thing. Loki's taken over Asgard, but then it's like 2 seconds later he's found out and Odin's dead. That's true. There's more could have been made of all of that. I wish the ramifications of that were felt throughout the film, which comes back to the script writing, not the direction.
Yeah. Well, just quickly back on the cameos, did you notice Sam Neill was Odin?
Yes, that was awesome.
And Sam Neill was in Taika's last film, Hunt of the Wilder People, as well. So there's a connection there. Where I actually, on what you just said, I actually liked the pace of the first third of the film. I liked that it was really rushed. The part that I didn't like is that I thought after the Gladiator battle, which was so fucking awesome, where we saw Thor go head to head with Hulk, I thought it took too long. I thought that part was quite bloated, and it took too long to get off Sakaar and then get into the third act. And the third act was brilliant. I loved it. I thought the middle part was bloated, and I really loved the pace of the first act.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
So we kind of got different takes on that one.
I kind of like. I think that they'll cop a bit of flack for Odin's death. I'd have to go back and watch the second one again because I'm really not quite sure still why he died in this movie.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a bit. Yeah, I wish that was answered, but I didn't mind the fact that he died in the way that he did, like in a kind of peaceful way. I thought that was very interesting, and I love the development of like Hela coming and saying, "Well, guys, he was a conqueror. He was,
exactly. He wasn't necessarily a nice guy."
Yeah, I like that development, and that was nice. Nice extension to Asgard.
It was funny. Before the film, I was sitting there watching the trailers, and I was thinking back about the Thor trailer and how good it was. And I'm like, oh, you know what made that film's trailer so good was the use of the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin.
Yes.
And then they used it twice, and that's something you rarely ever seen. Like, we saw it with the Suicide Squad trailer where they used Ballroom Blitz, I think it was. And they didn't necessarily use it in the film, and we've seen all these trailers cut to songs that don't necessarily translate back into the film. But the fact that they used this in the trailer and the film itself, I fucking love that. I thought it was so cool.
And both times they used it was flipping awesome.
Yeah, it started with awesome visuals that led to the song, and you're just like, yes, this is fucking awesome.
And I'm kind of sad they gave it away in the trailer, which is the, what are you a god of? And then he's like all thundery. Yeah. But I really like that arc for Thor. As far as like, you're more than a hammer. Yeah, like, and I loved when Odin, was like, the hammer was not your power. The hammer was a conduit for your power. You like so that like when you don't have it, you can go crazy. And that sequence of him on the Rainbow Road just tearing apart those people, those zombie Asgardians, was worth the price of admission alone.
Absolutely, and that goes back to Spider-Man as well, when Tony Stark says, if you're nothing without the suit.
Yeah.
So that goes back to Thor's hammer as well, where they got to find that they have to go back to basics and find out what makes themselves powerful rather than rely on something else.
Yeah. Loved it. Should we talk
Cate Blanchett?
Yeah.
Yes, Cate Blanchett. When her first appearance on the screen, you were just like, wow.
Yes.
It was one of those moments where, Heath Ledger Joker, for me, the first time you see him, just like, wow, they're just going to own this. And she absolutely owned it.
It is just incredible how, like, Chris Hemsworth is, I think is a fine actor. Hiddleston's a great actor. But she's just, anytime she's near the screen, you just got to think, like, she's got a gravity that the other actors just don't have.
Yeah. Like, she is a serious actor. Like, there's actors, and then there's like the top level
Thespians.
Actors. Exactly. This is an Academy Award winner. This is a Broadway actress, and she's coming to do a villain in a Marvel film. That just makes it so fucking cool. And her performance was so awesome. And as I said, she was stunning to look at. I really loved the goth look that she was going for. And I've necessarily never found her really attractive, but man, she was stunning.
I really hope we see her again. There's
so do I.
Talk of her coming back with Thanos, and we didn't really see her perish, so there's the possibility that could happen. I think a very, very good possibility, to be honest, because can we just say, like, that third act switch where they have to destroy Asgard was so good. Like, they set it up at the beginning of the film and then come back to it at the end. Was so good. So with Asgard destroyed, she's adrift or whatever, and can be picked up by Thanos. I think there's a lot of potential there. Man, I hope we see her again because she was a great villain. And I thought she was not necessarily underused, but I just wish there was more of her in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. She definitely could have had more screen time because, as I said, every time she was on it, you were just drawn to her.
Mm.
And speaking of the planet being blown up, I love the scene where Korg is like, "Oh no, we can rebuild as long as there's a good foundation. We can rebuild
as long as the structures are good."
Then they blow it up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, there's no foundations there."
Like, that's another good example. Just let that one slide.
Yeah, but as I said, not everything has to be taken so seriously.
No, of course not. Just some moments.
Like, this is humor that I use. Like, even at the wake of my grandmother's funeral, I always tried to keep things light. And if anyone says anything to me, I'm just like, you realize my grandmother just died, and just so I could take the air out of the room, and just like, so I love that type of humor. So for me, I'm all about that. I loved it. I thought it was so good.
Yeah,
but I can understand where you're coming from. That it does take you out of it a little bit at that moment, where they're trying to build something and you're trying to make you feel something, then all of a sudden they pull the carpet out from under your legs with the joke. So I totally understand where you're coming from, but I love that sense of humor.
Cool, yeah. No, I'm down.
I don't take anything for seriously.
Yeah, I respect. Yeah, I think this it was a really good film. Any film where two like huge bad guys fight each other like that, I love that. That's cool. And that little sequence with Hela versus Surtur was just friggin' awesome.
Yeah, I actually really love the part where, they make the decision that they're just going to let this happen. And then in the background, you see Hulk running.
Yes!
And then Hulk
that was great.
And they're like, no. And he's like,
monster.
Yeah, Hulk fight monster.
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And he's like, okay. So as I said, it's just shit like that. Like, you're so focused on the foreground, and then you just see him running in the background. And you're like, no, leave him alone. Let him destroy Asgard.
Yep.
But as you said, I love the fact I didn't think they were going to go down that round where they'll actually destroy Asgard. But, as they said, it's not necessarily the ground that Asgard is on. It's the people that make it. So, as I said, there was a lot of really good messages there, and I thought it was very good.
What do you think of Karl Urban?
I don't know. I think they kind of... I liked his introduction. That was quite funny.
Yeah.
But after that, it was just kind of like, they played a little too much on him trying to find that balance of what he wanted to do. Did he want to be the executioner, or he couldn't go through with it? And then they end up killing him anyway. So as I said, it was kind of a bit of a waste.
I would have liked to have seen him just be a bad guy.
Yeah,
I don't think they needed his redemption.
I thought he could have been just the executioner.
Yeah, and again, I wish he was just a little bit more serious. He was pretty much a joke the whole way through. I don't understand why Hela would see him and be like, okay, you can be my right-hand man, because he was very clearly inept.
Because he looks like a badass. He's got a shaved head and he's got like fucking tattoos on his head.
He does look badass, but he's not.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing you haven't mentioned, which I thought you would mention straight off the top. Your boy, Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, we're building to it, man.
Yeah, he was good.
He was very good. And I've got to say, I love Jeff Goldblum. I understand that Jeff Goldblum plays Jeff Goldblum in pretty much everything. But I felt that he was really trying here. And I felt that there was a different shade of Jeff Goldblum than we've seen in the past. I felt he was menacing.
Yeah, no, he was good. As we've had our discussions about Jeff Goldblum, and I've always said he just plays the same character all the time.
Respect that.
But as I said, even though he did do that this time, he was very charismatic and he was quite funny. And he wasn't necessarily a bad man. And then his scene in the after credit.
Yeah, that was so good
too. Like he's trying to weasel his way out of this.
Call it a draw.
Exactly, we'll call it a draw. So as I said, it is Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum, but this was a very good Jeff Goldblum.
You know what? I was actually reading a little bit about these guys because I don't know a lot about them, to be honest. He is the Grandmaster and the Collector, like Benicio del Toro's character, are part of the same. There's a small group of immortal beings who exist in the universe, and they've got certain things. Like the Collector collects stuff, that's what he does, and the Grandmaster likes games and competition, that's what he does. And they're they've got a story that goes throughout the history of the Marvel universe. So it'd be I'd love to see Benicio del Toro and get a whole bunch of these random actors to play all these different characters and have them come together, at least for a scene at some point. I would love that. No,
I totally agree. And then obviously the big scene in Act 2, the gladiator battle, that was fantastic.
I wish we had more gladiator battles. I wish we saw. I know why we didn't, because as you said, it was going a little bit long in that section. But to see Korg and stuff like that out there would have been great. But the fight between Thor and the Hulk was amazing. And
when I sat down and watched it, I wish they didn't show as much as what they did in the trailer. I would have loved to have seen that line where he says, "We know each other from work. just left in the film. I was disappointed that it didn't have that same effect.
Yeah.
When I saw it in the film as when I saw it in the trailer.
No, I definitely agree with you there.
But they do have to sell the film, so I understand that.
The good thing about the fight as well is that there was still story being told during that fight. It wasn't just, all right, now they beat each other up for 5 minutes and then we move on. Like, there was still, we saw, I think that was the first time we saw we saw Thor get his lightning on.
Yeah.
And also
sparkles.
Sparkles. Watch out, he's got sparkly fingers. That was so good. And also, the idea, like, it was I thought they did a great job showing that Hulk loved Sakaar because people liked him.
Yeah.
Whereas they hated him on Earth. Like, I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah. No, as I said, I thought overall the film was great. And then the budding relationship between Thor and Hulk that grew throughout the film, and even Thor and Bruce Banner was fantastic.
You more.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and then to have Thor have discussions with the Hulk, whose language is very limited.
Yeah, that was great.
I can kind of see myself with my 4-year-old and Hulk at the moment, where he's just this huge ball of energy, which Hulk is, much like my 4-year-old son, and trying to explain things exactly. And then Ace and my younger son Ace trying to explain things as Hulk would. A lot more advanced. But I definitely saw that relationship there as well.
Yeah, no, that was great. It was very much a comic book movie.
Yeah.
I think in my mind, which is awesome.
Were you disappointed that it wasn't more Planet Hulk?
Yes and no. I don't think you could ever make a Planet Hulk, and particularly now because they took some elements of Planet Hulk and put them in this movie. It would be awesome to see a full Gladiator, like a Spartacus starring the Hulk, but I don't think it was ever really going to happen. Look, if they ever wanted it to happen, they could definitely do it again. He just gets recaptured and goes from it. But yeah, that's all right. And there was a lot that was different. Like Sakaar was a very different place, and obviously the Grandmaster is not an original Planet Hulk. But yeah, it's fine. We got a taste, and that's all that I need. If I want Planet Hulk, I'll just go and read the graphic novel.
Yes. Well, I know we've jumped around from endings to middles to the starts and everything else, but as I said, it's more of a discussion than anything else. So I hope that you do go out and see this, and I think it's going to make a lot of money. I think it's going to open at least over 120 million at the US alone, and I think it'll open over 200 in a worldwide release in its first weekend. So go out and see this film. You won't be disappointed.
No.
And even if you're not a fan of the MCU, I reckon it's a good standalone film in itself. And I think there's enough comedy in it for you to really enjoy it, even if you're not necessarily a comic book film.
Completely agree.
All right, well, that wraps up another episode of None Other Than Podcast. I am Sean Pierce.
And I am Sean Kelly.
And until hopefully next week, hopefully there's decent enough news for us to warrant a show. Let your week be a good week until next week.